again for Once Upon a Tune, the podcast about tunes where we celebrate music
and the characters who make it. What's up, guys? I'm Broke Poland.
And I'm Dev Jana. Today is episode 5. Is that right? Is it episode 5?
Episode 6, baby.
Episode 6.
We crossed the threshold.
Well, I'm a developer. Developers start counting with 0. Like the first thing is 0, so like it's episode 5 in the array of episodes. You dorks out there will know what I'm talking about. But today we're gonna go for a spin. We're gonna talk about the big idea. We're gonna get into back into the rhythm of our usual segments: Matt's music history and Dev's deep dive. But first we're gonna go for a spin, and today we're gonna be talking about our show experiences. So these are shows that we've seen, and we're gonna talk about the most. Any type of thing. So I'm going to spin this, and we've got impressive, cathartic, chaotic, charisma, memorable, and surreal. And we are first going to kind of maybe chat about our most impressive shows that we've seen.
So we're talking about going to shows, like what we witnessed, not what we like. Okay.
Exactly. As an audience member, what was just off the top of your head, since you were experiencing this in real time, Matt? What would you call maybe the most impressive show that you had seen? Or the first couple.
I would have to say there's two that really stand out. Two bands that I didn't really think much of, and then I saw them, and they blew my mind. I had heard of this band called the Avett Brothers, right? Oh, yeah. Folk brothers. Kind of reinventing the folk and bluegrass to what it turned into with the Mumford & Sons and them, and the resurgence, if you will, back in the mid 2000s. And out in Sherman, New York, there's a music festival that happens every year called the Great Blue Heron Music Festival, and these guys play it every year. Well, I started going to it, but I always missed them, and I always heard people talking about them. So one year I went and was like, okay, I got to check this band out. I hear about these brothers or whatever. I went and saw them, and man, like, the two bands I'm about to say are the only two bands that actually, like, made me well up watching them. And the first one was the Avett Brothers. I was just so taken back by their harmonies, their original songs, how they just kind of... They changed the course. I mean, they really came up with some melodies and harmonies that I'd never heard before, and just impressed the hell out of me. Their bass player was tight. Their cello player was animated. They just had their show down to a science. It was very transparent. You could see exactly who they were and what they were trying to do. It wasn't confusing. Sometimes you go and you see a band and it's hard to, like, figure them out. You're like, what am I watching? What is this? It was just very straight to the core, roots based music, and they impressed the hell out of me.
I didn't know. Are they like? So I grew up in that area, where you live, and I went to the Blue Heron. More times than I remember. Are they from like southwestern New York or something? How
North Carolina. They're from North Carolina. They were tour warriors for a while and just like did their thing. And it's funny because I saw them again the next year at Great Blue Heron Fest, and they got off stage and they were like, "Oh, we'll be back. See you guys next year. We love this festival." Well, then about we'll say 3 months later, they recorded an album with Rick Rubin, right. And then they were playing with Bob Dylan on the Grammys, and I was like, "Yeah, we're not going to see them next year."
We're not going to see them again. Okay, that's where I was going, because I think they landed on my radar a little bit later when they were already like on the national stage.
Yeah, it was crazy. I got to meet them a couple times. In fact, I opened for their dad, Jim Avett, who is also a folk singer. They like the nicest dudes you can imagine. Deserve everything they're getting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool to see some grassroots, not also literally, but figuratively, a couple brothers that just put the work in and deserved to be recognized for it. And they did without losing themselves.
That's awesome.
They're really humble, cool humans.
One of their albums, I want to say about 8-10 years ago, where I was like, are those electronic drums? They're doing some different stuff. It might have been the Rick Rubin album, actually, because he seems like the one who would have pushed them in a weird direction like that, and I was like, wow, that was a little bit different, and the album was fantastic. I didn't know what to expect, and it was really, really good. I think one of the things that I really like about them that stands out to me, and the Milk Carton Kids are another like band that I adore and that really pull at my heartstrings, is that it always seems very authentic coming from them in a way that a lot of their contemporaries don't grab me in with the same depth. For me, probably the most impressive show was one that I knew that they were going to be impressive. I knew that they were going to be amazing, but I could not believe how freaking incredible they were. It was the first time that I saw Rush. And I spread the gospel of Rush far and wide all the time. I'm like, man, I tell people, I'm like, dude, you have no idea what it was like to see the old man go to work. When I'm talking about Neil Peart, like to just watch this quiet introvert dude just sit down at his 360-degree drum kit with 24-karat gold hardware and just absolutely rip a hole in space-time with just his drums sometimes. It is just absolutely incredible. Meanwhile, Geddy is playing the bass and playing the organ with his feet while singing and playing the keyboards, and Alex is maybe the most underrated, interesting guitarist from his era. Like, he's really an incredible player. It's hard to stand out when you got those other two guys in your band, but in particular, I remember leaning over to my friend and saying, like, if aliens ever come to Earth, and we have to like prove that we're worthy of living, I'm going to take him to a Rush show and be like, look what we can do. Can three of you do this? I don't think so. Like, I think we've talked about this before. I love Green Day. You love Green Day. We've both seen Green Day a bunch of times. You see Green Day. How many people are in Green Day? There's 3 people, right? There's Trey, Mike, and yeah, and Bill. Yeah, we know those guys. But you go and you see them. There's 6 people on the stage sometimes, right? There's keys, there's rhythm guitar, and those guys have been touring with them. They've been friends. They've been basically part of the band for forever. But you go to see, when you would go to see Rush, it was 3 dudes ripping your face off with more sound than you think would even be possible.
Right.
And they also did an amazing job of connecting with the crowd. A lot of people can kind of overpower you, but they do an amazing job of connecting with the crowd. Do you want to do another spin, or do you want to move on? What are you thinking?
I was gonna say my other experience that I was gonna say might tie us right into where we're going.
Let's do it.
So my other most impressive experience was Ozfest 2007, and there was a band headlining that I'd heard about, and at the time I wasn't really into the new metal thing, and I was brushing a lot of that music off because it just wasn't my thing. But then this band came out, and they just released 2 albums called Hypnotized and Mesmerized. And they were at the headliners that year. It was the first year Ozzy didn't headline, I think. And they were called System of a Down. And my drummer actually at the time, Marky G, was adamant that I had to watch them. He knew I was going to love them. And I'm telling you, when I say from the first chord, and we were up on top of the hill. I mean, they were this big, and it didn't matter.
Right.
From the first chord they played to the last chord, I was hypnotized and mesmerized. Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I far underestimated those guys from what I, in my little brain at that time was like, whatever, it's just gonna be some metal stuff. You know what I mean? Not at all. Those harmonies, dude. When they sang the song "Sad Statue," which they chant, "You and me will all go down in history with the sad statue of liberty in a generation that didn't agree," I just like welled up. I was like, what am I seeing right now? What is this? Where are these guys from? And it was crazy to me and very eye-opening on judgment. Not being so judgmental by hearing 10 seconds of one song and basing my opinion on a band.
Well, they're a perfect example of a band that wouldn't do well in focus groups where you play people 30 seconds of the band. What do you think? Because like,
what
they
do
hit
you
on,
think?
they hit on all cylinders. They're incredibly creative, so they hit you with sidewinders all the time.
Yeah.
And so like if you get one of those, you're not ready for it, or out of context, it doesn't really make sense. When I was a professor in Vermont, I helped start the Sonic Arts program, which is basically the music program at that college. And the other professor who was really the head of it, he's been there now for like 30 some years, you know. I would play him some stuff by them. And one of the other bands, they were one of the bands I was going to talk about in a little bit. Let's just crack open the big idea. What's the big idea for today? The big idea for today is politics and music, and absolutely, System of a Down was on my list of bands I was going to discuss today. So let's just kind of crack this open with them.
Go right
but
there.
even without the political angle, I would play them. I would play my my fellow professor some of these songs, and he was similar. He was like, he's like. Because he's from a generation even before me, you know, like he was born, I think, in the late 50s, and he's like, yeah, you know, I didn't realize that metal had gotten so complex and interesting. Like that was a big thing that he said. He's like, I didn't realize it had gotten so interesting because like everything that they were doing, well, he was like, oh, whoa, where was that? Where did that come from? Where did that rhythm go? And you know, he was looking at it through a lens that a lot of you know, like people who've been in the intellectual musical world for a long time do, which is like, how do I fit that into this box that I already know? What rhythm is that? Is that a Brazilian rhythm? Is that you know, an African rhythm? Is that a Middle Eastern melody? It's like, no, they're actually doing something different, and it kind of becomes a collage to them because they're looking for like, oh, this is mixed media. But they were one of those bands that was impossible for this guy to like kind of quantify in terms of things that he already knew, which is exactly from where they came. I want to talk about, you know, like they're all of Armenian descent. They are from California. They're from the LA area where I'm from, and one of the things that they've always done is brought the Armenian genocide to the from World War I to the forefront of public consciousness, which is not something that people normally think about. Certainly even World War I, and I say this all the time as someone who just like, you know, goes down the rabbit hole. It's like, oh, that'd be really interesting to learn about that and think about that. We get so much World War II information, and you know, my grandfather died in World War II, serving the U.S. Navy. So like there's still like vestiges of that in our life. His Purple Heart's literally right above the camera right now, you know.
Oh, wow.
So like those things are still with us. Whereas World War I, we just kind of like World War I happened and then World War II happened, and that tends to be our modern sense of history. And it's really interesting that they've always kept that at the forefront. Let's crack this open a little bit more into the politics and music stuff. I'm interested in what you have to say and bring to the table about what they do.
What with System of a Down, or just going in general? Well,
System of a Down.
I like the idea that one, they were creative enough to, you know, if you listen album by album, they start heavy. They kind of, in a weird way, I don't want to say they gave the people what they wanted, because System was never that band. You know what I mean? They just did their thing. But their first couple albums were, it's hard to even say traditional metal, but definitely focused towards, you know, heavier, fast, thrashy kind of, you know, metal. But they always had like these political undertones. They were always shedding light on, you know, religion and politics and, you know, free speech. But I guess why those last two albums they came out with, Hypnotized, Mesmerized, I feel like is where, and a lot of old school System fans don't like those albums.
Yeah.
But me as like an artist and a musician and somebody who, for lack of a better term, kind of gets bored easy, like, you know what I mean? Those albums were perfection in my eyes because they had fun songs that every song in those albums had different dips and swerves in them, you know? There's like mandolin on them and like all these weird instrumentation. But like I said, with that song Sad Statue, they really brought it to the forefront. Like, hey, we're not gonna sing as fast as we did in the last one. We're gonna harmonize and make sure you hear our words clearly, because what we have to say is more important than thrashing. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt about it.
There was some like as someone who had been listening to them for like since the '90s, it was Darren kind of took over, the guitarist kind of took over. He even took over the bass duties on the album, and like Shavo's an incredible bass player. So like I think we could feel that, like it just felt a little bit different. It did feel more cohesive, but on the music side of things, those aren't my favorite albums, but I grew with them, and like I understood that they were great while they were happening, but they didn't like touch me the same way that Toxicity did. And even like Spiders or something. Like I'm talking individual songs.
I mean, Toxicity could be in the top 15 albums of all time if you really break it down.
Ooh, 15. That's high praise.
I think so. I think Toxicity is a perfect album. Like even over the two albums that I'm saying right now, like
and it is as close to a perfect album as you can get. And I will say that I specifically remember a friend of mine coming to town and who had moved away, and I was playing that album, and I was like, I remember him going, "Whoa, is that true to Prison System?" You know, which also, you know, like one of the greatest first songs on an album. But yeah, an incredible band. I also want to point out like B.O.B. is another big one. You know, Bring Your Own Bombs and Boom. Like they were always very overtly anti-war. Specifically the Iraqi War, which was happening while they were releasing those albums. And it's kind of hard to overstate. There's a huge Armenian population in the LA area. I used to live in LA, and it's hard to overstate their influence. Or maybe not influence or representation, maybe of that community is really an interesting thing to kind of experience. They were on my list, obviously, so we were both going to talk about them, which makes them one of the premier bands. I'm going to shift to one of their influences, who was probably on everyone's idea when we talk about this, which is Rage Against the Machine, the 1993 debut. I was a 90s teen at the time. It was really hard. It's going to be really difficult to kind of explain how, if you think about 90s rock and roll, like so much of it is thought of as like this dark, brooding poets, you know, like we've seen Eddie Vedder like hunched over with the beer bottle saying like, I don't want to be a celebrity. Obviously it didn't end well for most of the singers in the grunge era. And that's an accurate portrayal of what it was like to live your sexual, you know, prime out under the shadow of AIDS, and you know, like with the politics of the time switching from Reaganomics to the Clinton era, like that is an accurate portrayal of how a lot of us felt. But Rage took the musicality and the personality that we were feeling in terms of the personal like catharsis in music and made it public. You know, it moved our music, the music that we were listening to as the youth of the time, kind of from like thinking inward to examining what was outward. And in particular, I mean, this is one of the most ridiculous stories. But when one of my best friends and I, who we played in bands all the way through till after college, released a bunch of CDs and stuff together. But we got in trouble in English class or something, and we had to stay after and make posters for the room that had good messages for everyone. Like we were just being disruptive, you know. We were just being punk kids, and most of them were Rage Against the Machine quotes. like I remember "Know Your Enemy" was on one of them. It's, you know, like, but all that music was so energizing in a completely different way. And I think Tom Morello has like, he gets a lot of flack these days. But he really is an important creature in the history of music. I can't think of any other honors poli-sci graduates from Harvard who decided to become rock stars because they realized that was a better way to make a social impact. Were they on your list, or do you have any
I mean, of course, Rage Against the Machine was on my list, but I love folk music, and my favorite is always going to the root. You know, I like finding the root of whatever music I'm into. Yeah. And I have Joe Hill on my list. Joe Hill, he was a union organizer in Utah. He got framed for murder in and executed in 1915. He basically was Woody Guthrie's idol. He's the reason why we have Woody Guthrie. There's no actual recordings of him, but all of his songs have been re-recorded and released. If you want to check out an amazing video, there's Joan Baez, I believe it's at Woodstock. I believe it's at Woodstock, sings the Ballad of Joe Hill and kind of tells his whole story. But he fought racism and gender inclusivity, but ultimately he was fighting for the unions. He was a union organizer and trying to get rights for union workers, and was causing such a stir that they framed him for murder of a grocery store clerk, which they knew the police had already gotten the guy who got him, who did it, who is a career criminal, but they realized that they could silence Joe Hill because he was causing everyone to be in a stir. And especially back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, like, you don't want to be a stir. And he was one of the first ones that was writing songs, sending them out to people to sing and to help rally people together, and was just a huge influence to Woody.
That's about as grassroots as it gets.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Can you expound a little bit on, like, how was he sending the songs out? Like, sheet music? Was he like?
Honestly, I don't know. I can't say that well, I know he went around singing and was teaching the songs to everybody to sing with him.
Right.
Because, he believed in singing in unity. And and they were causing stirs. He was, there was strikes. He was leading strikes. He was, again, very anti-racism and fighting for, to get policy changes in the union. And like I said, he was a big advocate for women's rights also, and being like, why don't they have the same rights as us? And he just went around. Like I said, he was in Utah, is where the majority of this went down, but it was so impactful that it spread, nationwide.
And he was Woody Guthrie's, like, one of Woody Guthrie's main influences and heroes early on. I mean, that sounds perfect for that. I'm sure Woody's on your list. When we talked about this before, that was the first place that I went. First place that I went mentally when we talked about this, and I was like, well, Matt's the one who should really talk about Woody Guthrie. So let's use that as a transition point to.
I'd like to both talk about Woody Guthrie, because Woody Guthrie, man, this machine kills fascists is what he had written on his guitar. It's funny because I only recently started studying Woody. I always appreciated Woody because, like, I write a lot of political stuff myself, so you always know your roots. But it wasn't until recently that I really got into who is Woody Guthrie? Where did all this come from? And especially with. Look, I'm just going to say it. I'm not trying to make this a political podcast by any means, aside from the music and politics, but we're in a really sad state right now, a really confusing state, a really, there is definite unbalance in the force, and that's why I started to, like, go back to Woody. I'm like, all right, well, what was he doing when there was imbalance back then, Yeah. And it's amazing because you hear some of these songs like Tear the Fascists Down, or the song Old Man Trump, which is literally one of Woody Guthrie's songs, because Donald Trump's father was Woody Guthrie's landlord, and he was sick of him being a racist and called him out through song. And this is so long ago. Like, it's amazing.
Generations.
Yeah. But yeah, just being an anti-fascist and calling people out. At that time, you got to think music wasn't about that. That wasn't that wasn't what the layman listened to music for. So when somebody came out and started saying things that people were thinking or feeling, you know, it really is the founding blocks of punk rock.
Absolutely. You and I have talked about how, like, when I listen to like new school punk, I always go, these would make great folk songs. And I play them acoustic all the time because there's a common through point there. But we can't also, of course, leave out This Land Is Your Land and just the concept of creating a new, like, an alternative national anthem that doesn't have bombs in it, and his continued advocacy for Native Americans and stuff like that during his time. It's like, it just seemed like Woody was the guy that you wanted to have around. Like, when I think about it, and I do this often, and I encourage the users to do this, or the users. See, I used to be a developer. The listeners, and you to do this too. Like, every now and then I would do this mental exercise. It was like, if I was going to have a pizza party right now, a pizza meal is much more communal than just about anything else because everyone's reaching in and eating the same thing together, right? And it kind of, like, I can eat my piece while you're talking and stuff. Like, it just always seems to kind of work out a little bit better than, you know, if everyone's
That is such an interesting analogy. I love it.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like you create a little community around a pie, right? Like a cheesy pie. And I always go, like, who would I invite right now? And I'll be like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a pizza with, like, Abraham Lincoln and Jimi Hendrix, you know, like, and Woody Guthrie shows up in that thought experiment all the time. I don't listen to him nearly as much as you do, but he's like, I was like, oh, I would love to hear him and George W. Bush talk or something. You know what I mean? Like there are times where he's just kind of like always in the background of my mind, and I think that I mean his era of influence was like early 40s, if I'm right on,
30s,
right? Like
30s,
yeah,
20s,
30s, even early, yeah, pre-World War II was kind of
yeah.
what I was thinking.
Well, him and Pete Seeger, you can't leave it out. You know, his good buddy Pete Seeger, who I think I said in the last podcast was maybe the Mr. Rogers of music, just like the most soft-spoken, peaceful guy. Which, by the way, if you get a chance to see Edward Norton does a killer portrayal of him in A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie.
You mentioned, yeah.
But yeah, so these guys were essentially sticking up, following every rule that they could while doing it. You know what I mean? Maybe not every rule. Well, that's why I said that they could. You know, they'd been arrested multiple times and, you know, tried to get silenced. But ultimately, the craziest thing is, you know, Woody had Huntington's, so couldn't even speak by like the end of his life. Can you imagine being a singer, having so much to say by the end of your life, like you can't even speak?
We had, or I brought up Jason Becker in the previous podcast, which is kind of a guitarist analogy, but he had technology where, you know, he lost the ability to move anything in his body, but he had the technology there to be able to allow him to still at least express himself. At that point in time, that must have been so difficult for Woody, but I mean, he probably knew it was coming, and that's what made his work so so important and vibrant while he was young. I'm going to swing the pendulum back to 1993. One of the most important years for rock and roll. That was the year that the first Rage Against the Machine self-titled album came out. I want to point out that the cover of that album was the self-immolation of a monk. I'm not going to try to pronounce the monk's name because I know I will not do it justice. But just that enough was a shock. And later that year, towards the end of that year, Sound of the Police, the song Sound of the Police by one of my heroes, KRS-ONE, came out. Yes, exactly. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It starts out with him making the sound of the police coming at you.
It's the sound of the beast.
The follow-up to the Boogie Down Productions after Scott LaRock passed away, KRS-ONE is one of my all-time heroes, and it really continued a tradition of hip-hop being like as Chuck D said, the CNN of the streets in the late 80s. I was going to bring up Public Enemy, but I think that's everyone would know about Public Enemy. Specifically, I want to bring up Chuck D's voice in Public Enemy brought so much weight to what it was that they were saying. I remember one of my friends when we were young saying, Yeah, whenever we're listening to Public Enemy, it feels like my dad is yelling at me.
What a great way to put that.
Yeah,
he does. He has a bass.
Yeah, and there's so much authority in his voice. Yeah, bass. How low can you go? Death row. What a brother know. Oh man, incredible. He did some great work with. He continues to be a public figure, but like he did some really great stuff in the mid-aughts that I think was overlooked too. But KRS-One has done a great job of being outspoken and keeping his feet on the street for most of his life. What I think a lot of people don't really recognize is his, and this drives me crazy as a Minnesotan and a Minneapolitan here at First Avenue. The legendary place where Prince shot all the live footage for Purple Rain. It's our Madison Square Garden basically, but it's a club. On the side is a bunch of stars, right? You know, like the Hollywood stars.
Oh, I saw it when it came down last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And KRS-One is spelled KRS-1, and it breaks my heart every time. I would literally walk past it while I'm in line instead of ONE. And KRS-1 is an acronym for Knowledge Reigns Supreme Over Nearly Everybody, and it's which is coming out of the gates, out as a youth, like knowing that that's the standard that you're going to bear, was pretty amazing. But Sound of the Police really did, is the moment I said it, you went whoop whoop, like you knew exactly where it was going. Starts with that sound, and he was able to like kind of take that concept of being systemic racism that I don't think anybody, and this is very squarely 93. This is very squarely in the shadow of the Rodney King trials and beatings and stuff. That was probably when he was recording it. Like was able to turn that into kind of a pseudo hit, certainly a hit on the streets, but also like have a hook that would continue and allow people to keep talking about that. Like he always understood the power of the hook, which I think is pretty amazing. I want to encourage everyone to go down the KRS-One rabbit hole sometimes. Specifically, the album that is hardest to find, that is my favorite, is called Sneak Attack. I believe it came out in 99. It might have been 2000. Unbelievable album. And it's really, really hard to find. And one of my favorite things about it is because it's hard to find. Every now and then I'll find it at a record store and be like, oh, I'm buying another copy of this. It's not on stream. You go to look at his catalog on streaming. There's dozens of albums. It's one of the few that you can't find. It was during a period. He did another one after that called Life that also was very difficult to find. He was bouncing between record labels, these kind of smaller record labels, and it's kind of just out in the ether, which makes it a little bit more interesting. But I do think that he there's a direct line from the beginning of, Grandmaster Flash talk about broken bottles everywhere and describing the place where he lives and how it's a jungle out there, right? Directly to Sound of the Police and through NWA, but NWA was so confrontational about it, to their credit, and I loved NWA. We all had that tape.
Yeah, they had to be.
Yeah, but
there needs to be a balance. There needs to be an extreme on each side, right?
Exactly, and KRS-One was able to do that, in a way that was commercially viable, but still would get people to talk about it. I can't think of another MC who's still working today who put out songs with REM in the 80s. Like KRS-One is
KRS-One was such
chef's kiss.
He's a poet.
He's a force of nature, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's
a philosopher.
Exactly. Well, we both appreciate hip hop, obviously. There are rappers who are incredible rappers. Not all of them are poets. They might have great cadence. They might have good rhyming schemes, but that's not the basis of an incredible poet. KRS-One is somebody who's just an incredible poet. He has a message, he knows what he wants to get across, and he knows how many or few words to say in a line or a bar to punch you in the face with it. You know what I mean? You could read a KRS song without a beat behind it and feel everything the same way you would with
absolutely in the early to mid aughts. He was one of the progenitors of the Temple of Hip Hop. I used to be a card carrying member of the Temple of Hip Hop, and I would literally log onto the website and download and listen to his talks all the time. I would put them to music so I could listen to them while I was working when I was in grad school. It's hard to overstate the impact that he can have on you. We don't agree on everything, but he always has a positive message, and he always is looking to make progress. He's never looking backwards, which is pretty great.
it's interesting that you said that, because I was in the back of my mind thinking, like, you know, to be honest, his music's incredible, but if you get a chance, just watch a few interviews.
Yeah,
like,
that's the real shit.
Yeah, he comes at you with such a deliberately straightforward point of view, like realistic, practical. You know what I mean? Like, he just knows exactly how to say the right words to kind of hit everybody who's watching. You know what I mean?
It's all truth. Like
it's all
truth.
Truth.
Whether or not it is facts, it's his truth that he is speaking all the time. It comes from his experience, his understanding of the world. One of my all-time favorites. That song somehow like broke through at that point in time, which was really, really something else. I don't want to dominate the conversation here. Did you have anyone else that you wanted to bring up?
We're not done yet.
Okay.
So going, you know, we did Joe. I'm kind of trying to do the walk a little bit here. So we had Joe Hill influence Woody Guthrie. Who did Woody Guthrie influence that we know as a whole the most? My opinion, Bob Dylan. So you have Dylan now.
I'm in Minnesota. Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, Dylan, when he came up, he actually wrote a song about Woody Guthrie. I think it's called Woody Guthrie's Song, or Song to Woody. That's what it's called. But, you know, it's... I don't want to go on too much about Dylan, because there's going to be all kinds of opinions and all kinds of things you could say. And most of them are probably true. Like, every opinion you have on him is probably true, because the dude's just a weird anomaly. Maybe not the best person on the planet, but one hell of a writer.
Right.
One hell of an overwriter sometimes. But in the early 60s, what he did from like 1962 to 1965 was just exactly what music needed. You know, what folk needed, what protesting needed. It came from a very soft-spoken, non-aggressive point of view, but had a very aggressive message if you read between the lines. You know, the times are changing.
Maybe the most. That might be the most. That's legitimately might be the most important like rock and roll song of all time.
Yeah,
it actually might be.
It might be, you know, but all of them, even like Blowing in the Wind, like all those songs, they were put together so, and they were all written in like such a small amount of time. Like, that's the thing. That kid, because he was a kid then.
Yeah. That
kid had his finger on the pulse, and we don't have to say too much about Dylan. Everyone.
I don't remember which comedian said. I think it was actually one of the smaller comedians I saw live, but they were talking about Dylan, and they were like, "What's Blowing in the Wind about?" He did his Dylan voice, which I'm going to do a terrible Dylan voice. I'm not even going to do it, but he did like a whole interview with Dylan. He was like, "Gum wrappers," which I thought was hilarious.
Which is funny, because if you ask Dylan, he might give you an answer.
Yeah, like exactly. It was pretty great.
Yeah, gum wrappers.
Exactly. I can't even try to do a voice like that. I want to talk about, obviously, my era of choice is, you know, the 90s is when I grew up, and I want to talk about the most 90s 80s band, which is REM. And specifically the song Orange Crush. Yeah, right? Like, they are like the most 90s, 80s band, right?
That
like
is the most, or the most 80s, 90s band. One of the two.
I think maybe, there's an argument to be made for Jane's Addiction and also the Violent Femmes. I think those are very 90s bands, but, you know, got their start in the 80s. But REM, it's hard to overstate how ubiquitous they were, even though they weren't like big on radio, you know, like, because at the time there was no internet, there was no other way to get big. But I was in the tape trading circles and stuff, and we all had REM stuff, all of us. Like, even the hip hop heads, the metal heads, everyone had some kind of REM somewhere in there. Like, they're like, dude, you got Murmur? I was like, yeah, there's a really good song on it. It's like it was really kind of amazing. But Orange Crush was a song that they put out about the use of Agent Orange during Vietnam. that has a really sunny kind of vibe to it if you're listening to it. I'd never realized this because it came out when I was a kid. I think I was like 11 years old when the song came out. And, I had two older sisters who always knew what was happening socially and culturally. So that, like, they helped me understand, like, okay, this is what's happening here. This is a song about the use of Agent Orange in Vietnam, and Michael Stipe's father served in Vietnam. So, like, Agent Orange was like a pesticide, I believe, that was used a lot and was linked to like birth defects and stuff like that later on, and was just poured all over this country. So recently, one of my favorite YouTube channels is called Lost in Vegas. It's these two guys who just react to music. They're mainly hip-hop heads, but they've been now reacting to mostly rock for the last, like, I've been watching them for about 8 years now. And they did one on this song, and they were like, ooh, yeah, this has got a cool beach vibe. Yeah, this is feeling really good. And then they start listening to the lyrics, like, what is this about? And they're reading the lyrics, and they go, oh my God, this is what this is about, And REM was always really good at that, at having, like, what sounds like an alternative rock radio song that we'd hear on college radio, and adding depth to it. So there was always something else to keep looking at and keep looking for, and no one was expecting them in I want to say this was 89 or something like that. Oh, let me look this up, because that was on Green. I remember that album coming out. 88. Yeah, I like, no one was expecting them in 20 years after Vietnam to be writing a song about the use of Agent Orange. And it was really something different, and it was a great statement that, like, hey, you can do this, and you can be part of the popular zeitgeist and have something to say like this. I think it's very difficult to imagine, Rage Against the Machine getting a major record contract without the precedent like this being set by bands like REM. That's really important to that. Remember REM? You guys remember REM?
I remember REM. It's
Everyone
the end of the world as we know it, man.
Oh God, I wanted to play that so bad in the 90s band, but that came out in the 80s.
Dude, that scene from Tommy Boy, like,
oh, God.
I love that when they're trying to sing it. They're just like, and all the world as you know it, now I feel fine. 6 o'clock to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a friend who nails that song, by the way. Shout out to Matt Royak on that one. But let's see here. I got a whole list, so we're obviously not going to get to them all. Let's just talk punk. Let's get it out there, because, like, we could do a whole episode. In fact, I'm sure we will do a whole episode on punk rock, its importance. But let's really just try and hone in on one or two bands right now. I know there's going to be people watching this that are like, oh, you forgot this and this and this. We didn't forget. We just don't have time, for the record. Okay? So bear with us. I'm going to come out of the gate, just to put it out there. I'm going to say the Sex Pistols, because it might not be our politics, but for what they did for their politics, you could say whatever you want about the Sex Pistols, that their manager, Malcolm McLaren, built them and they were just a glorified boy band. I don't buy any of it. I've done extensive research on this band. Yes, part of that's true, but the other part is they had John Lydon,
Yeah.
And I don't know where his head's at these days, but I do know that back then he may have been one of the most important people in Europe for a moment. One of the most honest people in Europe. And what the Sex Pistols did in the short amount of time they did it was absolutely changed the landscape for what bands could do and the reach they could have. They got to the top. Their song "God Save the Queen," which was against the Queen, you know what I mean, was number one on their record charts, but they didn't let him play it, so there was no number one.
There was no number one.
It was a blank space. I'm like, if you,
there's no precedent for that, for sure.
Their political influence was just incredible. The Queen's Jubilee, they got in a boat and they rented a boat and filled it with all these punks and circled around England or London with playing all these songs out loud, and they all got arrested for it. And it just showed like they kind of were that starting point of the next level of like you can take this to the next level. You can cause a stir. You can get in the media. You can get your voices heard. And you know, regardless of how they were formed or what happened with them, they taught a lot of kids. They taught a lot of kids. You know, they were the ancestors, as my girlfriend puts it. Whenever we feel old, she says we are the ancestors now.
You're only good as someone who's a decade your senior. You're only gonna feel older as things before. Embrace it. Don't fight it.
Hey man, I say it all the time. I'm the oldest young and the youngest old I'm ever gonna be, so I don't really care. Like,
if there's anything else you want to hit, we should do it before we move on. But I also want to point out that Jello Biafra, the singer of the great Dead Kennedys, ran for mayor of San Francisco in the late 70s, which is pretty amazing. And I believe he I believe he ran for president against Ralph Nader in 2000 for that. But yeah, like it's hard to divorce punk and politics from a band named the Dead Kennedys, which might have the best band logo. Now that I'm thinking about it, they might have the best band logo of any band logo. You still see it everywhere, and it is immediately recognizable. And yeah. Very
absolutely, that DK.
Might be the best band.
That DK. My little sister stole my Dead Kennedy shirt and wore it all through high school.
That's funny
because I was so proud of it.
That's funny because I stole some Dead Kennedy stuff from my older sisters when I was young. Absolutely, that's how I know about them.
That's awesome. Well, let's just do some. What do you call it?
Some lightning rounds?
No, some. Yeah, I guess lightning rounds. I can't think of the name I want.
Speed run.
The honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions, yeah.
Nina Simone.
Oh yes.
Okay, we're doing lightning round. Look her up. Nina Simone, The Clash.
The only band that matters.
Only band that matters. Sam Cooke on a lot of levels.
Yes, interesting. Good call.
We're gonna get to some Sam Cooke because he's one of my heroes. Barry Maguire, Eve of Destruction. Just make sure we're gonna put that in the playlist. We got to put Eve of Destruction by Barry Maguire in the playlist. John Fogerty, CCR.
That was the next one I was gonna bring up. I don't think you can talk about politics and music without bringing up John Fogerty and specifically Fortunate Son.
Yep.
The Vietnam vets that I know are like, you don't understand how that was part of the fabric of our lives. Like, there's no way to overstate that. Thank you for making sure we mentioned that.
Absolutely. I got two more. I got Bad Religion. Maybe the best punk band of all time. Whatever, you know. I know that's a bold ass statement, but
I don't think that you're wrong.
Go see them. Go see them and tell me I'm wrong.
And I maintain, and I actually have a video planned on this. The actual songwriting of American Jesus is it might be the best written song I've ever, like, objectively the best written song I've ever heard. And I'm like breaking it. I'm going to do a full like 30-minute video on how amazing that song is eventually.
Oh, I got chills.
They're the best.
Me and Colleen went and saw them this summer, and it was just like, ironically, a religious experience. Yeah. Bad Religion was a religious experience.
I mean, Greg Gaffin was literally a poli-sci professor.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no way of divorcing the two.
Yeah. And the last one I wanted to holler out in modern times is Jesse Wells. If you don't know who Jesse Wells is, this kid writes a song a day. Whatever's on the news, he's writing it. He's incredible. This dude feels like he's straight out of CCR. I mean, and his lyrics and guitar playing are kind of unmatched right now. Like he's on every political topic you can imagine. Figures out a way to make it fun, but still get the point across without like the aggression of punk. Like, he is a true folk singer, and I would have to say the greatest folk singer that's
of our time
right now. Yeah, of our time.
If those to our listeners and viewers, you probably have seen him. He's usually standing out in the field. He's kind of got I don't know if
shaggy hair.
Yeah, I was about to say he might be a ginger or he might be blonde. He's got kind of dirty blonde hair,
yeah.
But he's usually just out in the middle of a field singing with kind of a Dylan-esque voice, honestly. And it is super. First time I saw him, literally the first time he came up my feed, I subscribed. I was like, whoever this kid is, he's going to be big, and now you can't escape him. It's incredible.
Well, he was just on, it made me so happy, he was just on Stephen Colbert, had him on, and he sang a song about ice, which, if you get a chance, look up Jesse Wells' song. I think it's just Join Ice is what it's called, and it's funny, but also hits all the not funny things about what we have going on. Oliver Anthony was also the last one
I was about to say. I actually saw Oliver Anthony. I think that Jesse Wells is kind of delivering on the promise that I was expecting from Oliver Anthony. I saw Oliver Anthony shortly after he had his breakout with Rich Men North of Richmond.
Yep.
And it was just, I really like him, and I want him to have success, but he clearly wasn't ready for that, for that stage. Whereas Jesse's just like just hemorrhaging good songs
every day,
every
single day,
well-crafted songs. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's like the Hank Williams of our time. Hank
that's an interesting way.
Hank Williams said would challenge people. Tell me I can't write a song. I think it was his driver or something like that challenged Hank Williams to write a song from their drive from somewhere back to Nashville, and he wrote "I Saw the Light." Like on the car ride. Praise the Lord, I saw the light. Like, come on, dude. In a car.
Yeah, there's no beating that. And so that makes it a perfect segue into our next segment. Which would be Matt's Music History. Matt's Music History is brought to you by Aerotone Productions, a live sound and recording production company coming out of northwestern Pennsylvania, specializing in sound engineering, multimedia editing, archiving, and scoring. This is Matt's Music History.
All right. What's up, guys? So, today we're going to be talking about the singing convict, the man who played his way out of jail. That's Huddy Ledbetter, also known as Leadbelly. In 1915, Leadbelly was caught with a pistol and arrested for assault in Texas. He's put on a chain gang for 30 days, but escaped from custody. And they got him, though. So in 1917, he shot and killed one of his family members over a woman after he got out of custody. He got out on good behavior from that last little thing. He was in jail, sang to the prison guards, taught all these prisoners how to sing and play guitar. He was writing all these awesome songs in jail, would sing to the prison guards to entertain them. Like I said, teaching other prisoners how to sing and play guitar. He spent 7 years in prison and got a pardon on good behavior and because, honestly, his singing, they respected how he, his songwriting and said, okay, we can't hold this guy forever. 1930, he got arrested again for attempted murder. And then while he was in jail, still singing and playing, still helping these prisoners, it seemed like he did really good in jail. Like he almost liked it there. That's
where he belonged.
He always had an audience. He could always play. Well, he was an alcoholic with a really bad temper. You know what I mean? And but this guy by the name of John Lomax, who recorded folk music and looked for underground artists all over the country, met Leadbelly in jail and recorded hundreds of his songs from in jail. They took on a petition. They took a petition and a bunch of songs to the governor of Louisiana to pardon him again. And it worked. Now, Leadbelly was good in jail, meaning he always had really good behavior and respect and that also led to the reason why he got let out early. But many people agree it's because of his songwriting and the contributions to music he was making. So the governor of Louisiana pardoned him again for like the third time. He literally sang his way out of jail. He rolled around with Woody Guthrie and was great friends with him, who we just talked about. Just a few highlights of Lead Belly is Midnight Special, which if you don't know Midnight Special, I think the most pop culture reference to it is Creedence Clearwater Revival, John Fogerty's version of it in the opening scene of the Twilight Zone movie. Because I know that's where I first heard it. I was watching Twilight Zone with my grandfather, and all of a sudden, Let the Midnight Special came on, and I was like, what is this song, you know? Where Did You Sleep Last Night is another song that he wrote, or it's hard to say wrote back then, because nobody knows who really wrote these songs, but first recorded version goes to Lead Belly on this. Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Obviously made amazingly famous by Nirvana in the MTV Unplugged album. You know, My Girl, Don't Lie to Me, Tell Me, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? House of the Rising Sun, made famous by the Animals. Another song he wrote, and Irene Goodnight, which I think every country artist in the 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s has done a cover of Irene Goodnight. Just to name a few. So the dude's impact was incredible. The dude's story is legendary. And I figured he was just somebody that we had to do some music history on, because, you know, there's these iconic characters that did these incredible things against all odds. Lead Belly was a big old African-American cotton picker who ended up in jail for being an alcoholic and having a bad temper and killing his family member and threatening to kill people. Doesn't seem like a stand-up guy, but again, all our heroes are bad in some way, right? So that's
except for the worthy ones we discussed in last week's episode.
I was just about to say, except for if you watch last week's last week's Once Upon a Tune, you'll hear about the ones who weren't so bad. But yeah, that's the story of Huddy Ledbetter, better known as Lead Belly, which, you know, weirdly enough, one of my favorite unintelligible songs of all time from Pearl Jam. Is it Honey Ledbetter?
I don't know.
That doesn't feel right. I gotta look it up real quick. Yellow Ledbetter. Yellow Ledbetter.
Yeah. Well, honey's yellow sometimes.
You know, you're stretching, but I appreciate it. All right, guys, Dev's Deep Dive is brought to you by 6 Tuning Pegs, providing technology solutions for guitarists and the rest of the world. Find out more at 6tuningpegs.com. That's the number 6, tuningpegs.com, for the love of guitar. Take it away, Dev.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about something that we call a line cliche today. And there's a bunch of different descriptions of it, but basically you take a note. In this case, I'm going to take this A note. I'm using that as a root of this chord, and you move it down one fret at a time. And if we play that on top of this minor chord, it's going to start sounding pretty familiar. Build some chords around that melody. You've heard this a bunch of times in a bunch of songs. If I play that just kind of straight, you've heard stuff like that happen all the time in rock and roll. I'm going to do it again in D minor here, and I'll complete the cycle. Well, what you do is you move from the root down to the 5th, and then back to the root. So it's like one fret each. kind of get back to the main chord. That's probably the simplest version of it. But here's the thing. That was it in D minor. It also works in major. Now we got the Beatles.
Yep.
Right? Like we had kind of Queensryche before, or
And
Pink Floyd or something.
Stairway.
Yeah, Stairways. Yeah, exactly. We had Zeppelin. So like in minor, it's... And then in major... So there's so many different ways to use this. All you're doing is moving a single note down on top of a chord. So the next time you're sitting down, you don't know what to do, you can always resort to a line cliche. So if it's an A major, if I'm just playing this A, I'm just playing single notes, and it opens up so many options for how you can sing or how you can build a melody on top of it. And you're really staying with a single chord, and you're just kind of moving the bass note down a half step. In fact, you can even just, as a guitarist, play the A note and have your bassist go. And you've got like the basis for what could be a pretty compelling song. So the line cliche, it's actually kind of interesting. You've got a lot. It opens up a lot of options for lead playing on top of it, which turns into a lot of options for melodies. But it can be really fun to use it on both major and minor. There's not many things that work like that. They just work on top of happy and sad stuff, and it just sounds really good. Do I want this to sound more like Megadeth, or do I want it to sound more like the Beatles? Well, then you just choose major or minor, and you've got a starting point for each of those. But yeah, line cliche is really fun, and it's a technique that you can always use as a songwriter. With that, I think we're going to wrap things up today, Matt. Let's do our, what's going on? You got anything happening in the studio over there today?
Well, before we wrap up, first off, that was Dev's Deep Dive, brought to you by 6 Tuning Pegs, providing technology solutions for guitarists and the rest of the world. Find out more at 6tuningpegs.com. That's the number 6. tuningpegs.com for the love of guitar. I'm gonna plug you, man. I'm gonna plug you. You're working really hard. I'm really proud.
I've been plugged.
You've been plugged.
Yeah, it was weird that I said you plugged me. I agree. That was weird. That was worth a pause to think about.
But so I do gotta tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
So I know I've said it before, but if this is your first time watching, when I was 16 years old, Dev was actually my one and only guitar teacher I ever had. And you're either gonna laugh at this or be mad at me about this.
Okay.
But while I was taking lessons from you, I did take guitar in high school at the same time. So technically, you're not my only teacher, but you were the only one I listened to, and I'll tell you why. The final test in my guitar class in high school was to play the full intro to Stairway to Heaven. And I went through, I was one of the last ones to go because you had to play it. It wasn't in front of the class. I think it was behind closed doors. Like he took each individual student into the office and they played it for him. But you could hear everyone else play. And some people were really good at it, but I knew that I had it down, right? Like I was confident. I wouldn't say I was cocky, but I was like, I know I got this. You know what I mean? And I went in there and I played it and I knew it was the best I ever played it. I was like, okay, I did it. You know what I mean? I knew it. And I was not a student by any means. So I needed this grade. And I get done with it, and he goes, "That you played that better than anybody in the class, but you failed." And I was like, "What? What do you mean I failed? I played that whole intro that you just played." I was like, was I in the wrong? He was like, "You didn't once look up at the music." I didn't know.
Man,
I didn't know how to read music, but I played it perfectly. I'm like,
you got busted for being smart.
I was like, but I played it. He's like, yeah, but you played it by ear. You didn't learn how to read music from my class. And I'm like, is that the point? And that's when I honestly kind of gave up on the entire system.
Yeah. Well, that's because you didn't teach me to read music.
Well, he tried. He tried.
Yeah, that's
But
weird.
I had this other guitar teacher on the sideline that was teaching me punk rock and stuff. So.
Yeah. Music is something that should motivate you. Like I honestly believe that. Like it should, like it's something that you should get to do, not something that you have to do. You know, like, oh, I have to play music. We call it playing music. What a weird approach. I ain't gonna, you know, I'm not trying to yuck someone else's yum. Like if that's how that person wants to teach, that's totally fine.
There's
That's
room for
probably why.
everybody. There's room
Right,
for
there is.
everybody.
There's room for everybody. But yeah, so like, well, I'll just say that here in Minnesota, it's been some pretty tough times, and my band Tiny Enormous had it was supposed to be our CD release party, but it ended up just being an emotional release show. It was one of the best shows that we ever played here in our lovely state's capital in St. Paul the other day. It was great to offer people some respite and stuff. That album is out now, but more than anything, like it was just great to hear people be happy, you know, like and enjoy themselves, and we can't let that be taken away from us no matter what else is happening. And it was weird. I felt like we provided like a public service, you know, and that we made good on the promise to try and build a masterpiece of joy to dismantle fear, as I was taught by one of my heroes, Santana. So that's the main thing that we got going on here. I've been working on my guitar. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to add into that. How'd the heart glasses go?
Oh, they were awesome. Yeah, so I also bought a bunch of heart glasses to remind people to not just fight against what you hate, but also fight for what you love or support what you love. And we've been doing really great for that here. I've been very proud of my fellow citizens here. But yeah, it was cathartic and it was cathartic and like had a lot of community there. And I don't know. It wasn't the biggest show I've ever played by any stretch of the imagination, but it was one of the best feeling ones, and I think it was very important for those that showed up. And I had a bunch of people say like, I can't come because I'm scared. You know, like a lot of people, and not the people that you would think. These are some of them have lived their entire lives in not just in the country, but in this state and in these cities. And they don't share my skin color. A lot of them are what I call Norman Rockwell, you know, white, successful suburban Americans who are living in fear too. So yeah, it was an honor to be able to provide that for people and to kind of reconnect us with what it is that music can do. But I've also been working on my guitar chord app. More about that in the future.
Yeah.
Very excited about that.
I did see you released on 6 Tuning Pegs a short about giving a brief description on it and a rundown. Looks great, man. I'm super excited. I'm personally excited to use it. Like I'm waiting for it over here, biting my teeth because I'm sick of pulling out a bunch of papers and going to other apps that aren't really good.
That's exactly the point, is to sit down and go, I got these chords. This sounds kind of vanilla. What can I do with it? Oh, okay, here's some options as quick as can be in your pocket. Yeah, more about that in the future. It's going to be called the Guitar Chord Survival Kit. It'll be on an iPhone relatively soon.
Yeah, man.
What do you got happening over there at Aerotone, Matt?
Well, it probably already happened by the time we recorded this, so I'll just say thanks, everyone, for coming to my birthday party. We just released our single, Curse of the Gloom, which I'm really excited about. I got a little extra motivated and took a bunch of live snippets of live shows and put them to the song, which really was a nightmare editing. I had to edit 7 camera angles from different shows and line my lips up and my tambourine up just right to get it to work. So I worked really hard on that. If you guys get a chance, it released last week. Check it out at brokeboland.com or youtube.com/brokeboland. Also, Matt Broke Boland on Spotify. You know, we're working really hard. Also, in the vein of political songs, I do have a bunch of stuff, if you want to hear it, that I actually wrote about 11 years ago during the Occupy Wall Street protests that were going on, that actually mirror what's happening now, and I feel that they're relevant. And I know I'm not the best at pushing my music, but if you're looking for some positive reinforcement right now, go to Matt Broke Bowling on Spotify and just poke around a little bit and see if anything hits you.
Perfect. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap things up for episode number 5 or 6, depending on how you count, of Once Upon a Tune.
We don't have an episode 0.
Actually, technically, we do. We have episode -3.
Yeah,
we
you're
go
right.
back that far. More on that later if you're interested. But if you got anything about which you would like us to talk, feel free to drop it in the comments or send us an email. You can find us on onceupon-a-tune.com. Over there, we also have, and on our Facebook page, we also publish is not the right way to put it. We also put out an official playlist for each week that has all the artists about which we've talked, and will of course include Curse of the Gloom for this week. So you can find us there. This has been Once Upon a Tune, the podcast about music, or about tunes, where we celebrate music
and the characters who make it. Thank you
see you
guys
next
so
week.
much. Later.
Cheers.